Hey YouTube, this is Jaden, and like I did a deck profile for my Vanguard deck that I played in Houston this past weekend, this is going to be my Buddy Fight deck profile for what I played in Houston as well. I want to give a huge shout out to the two people I teamed with for Buddy Fight, in Jackson and Will from my locals back home. And going into the top 8 standings, we were in 4th place, but after one team got disqualified during the deck check, we would move up one. So technically we were in 3rd place, I believe. But either way, we made top 8. It's really, really cool. Really enjoyed playing with them. They're both really, really good players. This deck that I'm showing you, obviously Thunder Empire, it didn't lose all day. I won every round that I played. I lost one game to I lost game 2 to Chaos, which was my final round, and ended up winning the 3rd game. But this deck, guys, is probably the best deck I've ever played in Buddy Fight because it has literally everything a deck could want. There is a lot more that goes into top 8 and the whole Buddy Fight tournament. I'm not going to cover that in this video. It'll be covered in my Buddy Fight video. This is just going to be the deck profile. There's a lot of frustration that comes especially from Sunday, and I'm going to get into all of that in my Buddy Fight video. So anyway, guys, let's jump straight into this deck. So Thunder Empire, and my buddy is awakened as Thunder Emperor Bots, which I will cover him when I get to him in the deck. So first off, we're going to get into monsters. I only play one copy of Drago Royale. This card did put in a lot of work, believe it or not, for just being a one-of. The Chaos match that I played in round 5, which was final round before Top Cut, this is actually one of the cards that won it for me. And I OTK'd him. So this card is really, really good. He has infinite power, 2 crits and 7k defense, size 3. To place him on the field, you simply just have to remove bots from the field and place him. His ability is, I'll just read him. During your turn, this card on the field cannot be destroyed, it cannot be rested, and its abilities cannot be nullified by your opponent's card effects. His ability is Overthrow. Pay 3 gauge and discard 1 card from your hand at the beginning of your attack phase. For this turn, this card gets Hextuple attack. You may only use Overthrow once per game. Overthrow cannot be nullified by your opponent, but cannot be nullified, and your opponent cannot counter. And he has natural double attack if you don't use this ability. But Hextuple attack, so he gets 6 attacks. He has infinite power, which means he's going to get over anything he battles, and he has 2 crits. So 6 attacks, you can wipe out Chaos's entire board, which is essentially what happened, and just complete annihilation. That was game 3 of the Chaos match. The guy played, it was a very good match. It was a very good match. I really enjoyed it. So if you happen to see this, don't take that as a insult, but this card put in a lot of work in that match specifically. It was the only Chaos game I played all day, which I really thought I would see a couple more of. I played against Darkness Dragon World. I played against Darkness Dragon World. I played against a Magic World. A couple of those are the only ones I can remember off the top of my head. But Drago Royale, only one copy. Saw him when I needed him. This is not the armor variant where you put him in the soul of the weapon and you get 2 overthrows. But one's all I needed. One copy of Overturn Ice Emperor Miseria. This card won me a game in my Magic World match. He had his set spells and his entire board set up, dropped Miseria, reset the game, and it just threw him off, and I ended up winning on the following turn. Miseria is a size 3 monster with 8,000 power, 2 crits, and 6,000 defense. It is a dual world monster for Legend World and Dungeon World. His call cost is pay 2 gauge, and put a spell from your drop zone into his soul. And his Overturn ability is you pay 2 gauge during your main phase. It nullifies the abilities of all cards on the field and returns all cards from each player's hand, gauge, and drop zone and field to their decks, shuffles the decks. Then each player draws 6 cards and puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the gauge. So he basically resets the entire game, and the only card that remains in play while you're shuffling your deck is Miseria. And he has natural double attack, he has Soul Guard, and he has lifelink too. So he is a very, very good card, and the reset he provided me in that game ended up winning me that match. So thank you, Miseria. Next, we play 4 copies of Awakened as Thunder Emperor bots, and like I said, this is the buddy I play. This is by far the best bots that they ever came out with, because he is the easiest to hit the board. You just have to take a Thunder Empire from the field and move it to the drop zone to call him. He has no gauge cost, which is really, really stupid. He has 7,000 power, 2 crits, and 4k defense. During your turn, this card cannot be destroyed, so yay. And then his other skill, which is really good, counter. Choose a card on your field and you may pay a gauge. If you do, stand the chosen card. Then, if you have 4 life or less, stand this card. So you can use his skill to pay 1 gauge and stand something on your board so it can attack again. And if you have 4 life or less, not only does it do that, but he'll stand up with that card as well. And he has natural double attack. So he can essentially gain triple attack for a 1 gauge cost, and he has no call cost. So that is really, really good. I will say, every time I never was able to crack his skill when I was at 4 life or less to stand him as well, because I would normally win on my 2nd or 3rd turn with this deck because it's so quick. Next, we play, I'm going to show these cards in succession, 4 Misfiring Demon Globes, 4 Connect Ninja Tomotion, and 4 Operative Spear. Now, the reason I'm showing these cards together is this provides Thunder Empire with the best consistency engine in Buddy Fight. Misfiring Demon Globes. Whenever another Thunder Empire monster enters the field, you can place the top card of your deck into the gauge and draw a card, and then whenever he swings, you can give +1 crit to any card on the field, including himself. Tomotion's effect. Whenever another Thunder Empire enters the field and he is on the field when that call happens, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 Thunder Empire among them to your hand. So he essentially lets you look at the top 3 and add any of them into your hand. So you can grab a monster, you can grab your item, you can grab your impact, you can grab a spell, you can grab pretty much anything. Well, you can grab anything. And then Operative Sphere. Operative Sphere, whenever he enters the field, you place the top card of your deck into the gauge and gain 1 life. And then if there are at least 2 different worlds on the field, you also get to draw a card. So these 3 together can be used very well to set up a pretty good opener. There were a couple of times where I would open up with Summoning Tomotion to the left or right, Summoning Globes to the center, activating Tomotion to look at the top 3 and add something to my hand, and then I would summon Operative Sphere, place the top card of my deck into the gauge, and gain a life, and then since there are 2 separate worlds on the field, draw an additional card, and then Globes would kick, allowing me to charge and draw again. So these 3 together, maxing out on them is just a no-brainer because they create literally the best consistency engine in Buddy Fight, period. For the rest of the monsters, 2 Wibbly, the Phantasmagoric, 3,000 power, 2 crits, and 1k defense. This card is really, really stupid. This card is like Armageddon Knight from Yu-Gi-Oh! If you've ever played Armageddon Knight. When this card enters the field, you can put 1 Thunder Empire monster from your deck into the drop zone and shuffle your deck. And then for the rest of this turn, not only is this card treated as Dragon World, it is treated as every other world that is written on that card. So I would normally send Miseria to the drop zone from my deck if I wasn't going to use him that game, because then he is treated as Dragon World, Dungeon World, and Legend World for that turn. And that'll make more sense here in a little bit, unless you already have that figured out. And then if there are 3 or more different worlds in your drop zone, he gets plus 3,000 power and plus 1 crit. So he becomes a 6/3 A 6,000 power, 3 crit, size 1. Really, really good. Next, we play 2 copies of Demon Lord's Deputy Vania. Vania is a really, really good card. Vania is a Magic World monster with 4,000 attack power, 1 crit, and 1k defense. He is not really used as a monster that much. He is used mainly as a utility card. His ability, Yes, I'm Here. When this card is discarded from your hand, put the top card of your deck into the gauge. Then if you have a 72 Pillars or Thunder Empire on your field, you may return this card from the drop zone to your hand. So this is basically a free gauge when you discard him for a cost, and he comes back to your hand. He's basically Sinister Serpent for Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is stupid. So, you know, there's there's that. Really, really stupid. So, and then for the last monster, I play 1 copy of Yellow Bat. Yellow Bat is a size 0 monster with 2,000 power, 1 crit, and 1 defense. When he enters the field, you may discard a card from your hand to charge and draw. He's just there as a little extra. He served his purpose. I saw him a fair amount. I almost cut him, but I'm glad I didn't. Yellow Bat's cute, and he did his job. Next, for item. I only play 1 item, and it's not necessarily an item. If you know the Thunder Empire deck, it is 4 copies of Overturned Battleship Satsuki G. Satsuki G is a size 5 monster, which means she can never hit the board, and then she has 12,000 power, 3 criticals, and 5k defense. So whenever you equip this to yourself, you will have 5,000 defense as the fighter. So her ability, when you station this card, you put up to 2 monsters from your drop zone into this card's soul. And to station this card, you must pay 3 gauge, and then you put the top 4 cards of your deck into its soul. So it's going to have a 6-card soul usually. And then its overturn is what's really, really good. Discard a card from your hand during the attack phase. For this turn, nullify abilities of all monsters on your field and during this attack phase. You may call Crew Trooper or Thunder Empire monsters from this card's soul without paying their call cost. So, essentially what you do is you're going to get as many monsters in there as possible. And then, what's really stupid, say you have Satsuki G equipped and you have Overturn, you have your Overthrow bots on the field, you can use your Overthrow skill, attack 6 times, attack with Satsuki, and then use her Overturn and just start calling out monsters and go 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, and you can get a shitload of attacks off. She is one of the winning image cards of the deck. She is really busted as hell. I don't know why some people hate this card. There are times where you're going to put the top 4 cards of the deck into the soul, and you're not going to get many monsters. But as long as you can just get 3 there, you're really okay, because you're going to have other ways to deal damage to your opponent. And Satsuki is the card that you stand with bots. You're going to attack with Satsuki, attack with bots. We don't have to attack with bots. Then you use bots' skill to restand Satsuki to attack again. She has 3 crits. That means she can do 6 damage if possible. I played a Darkness Dragon World matchup, 2nd round, and this kid had a monster in the center with a soul. Well, Satsuki also, along with Soul Guard and Station, has Penetrate. So, attack for 3. He loses the soul. The monster still stays there. Activate my buddy's skill, pay a gauge to restand Satsuki. Satsuki attack it again, 3 again. Satsuki is an amazing card. It is easily the best weapon for Thunder Empire, in my opinion. Maybe, you know, some people would prefer the armor that uses the overthrow, but I like Satsuki. She has done nothing wrong for me. Next, we enter the spells. 4 copies of Red Thunder Emperor's Awakening. This card is amazing, and I don't know why. I played another Thunder Empire. I played a Thunder Empire deck as well in those 5 rounds. I did not see this card play an awful lot, and I don't know why. This card is amazing. Whenever this card is activated, you immediately gain +1 gauge and +1 life. Then, if you have 3 different worlds in your drop zone, you can take any card out of your drop zone and put it back into your hand. And then if you have 6 or more different worlds in the drop zone, you may draw a card. So, what's really cool is, and I did this a few times, you can summon Wibbly, ditch Satsuki if you don't open up with it in your hand or draw into it with your humongous freaking draw engine. And then you can use this to gain a gauge and a life and get Satsuki to your hand. Or you can do that with any card. This card is so amazing combined with Wibbly, and it's essentially a 2-card combo to search out anything you want. Or if something goes into your gauge and you want it back later, you can always get it. This card literally is just a way for you to use your drop zone. So this is by far one of the best cards Thunder Empire has. 3 Fighter's Oath. This card is absolutely bonkers. Whenever you activate this card, you get +1 gauge and +1 life for every different world that is on the field. So what's really stupid, if you remember with Wibbly, and what we normally do when we pitch... Crap, where'd he go? Miseria. He becomes a Legend World, Dungeon World, Dragon World monster. That means just because Wibbly's in play and you use the skill that turn, the same turn you activated this, he gets you 3 life and 3 gauge. That is absolutely insane. This card is absolutely broke. There's no reason why you shouldn't be playing at least 3 of this card. 4 is too much, but 3 is perfect. 3 Black Sandcastle. This is a really good set spell. It's the only Darkness Dragon World card we play. All Thunder Empire monsters on your field, they can't be returned to your hand by your opponent's card effects. And then its other ability is Counter. During your opponent's turn, if you have 2 or more different worlds on the field, you may place this card from your field to the drop zone, and the next time you would take damage, it's reduced by 3. 3 Jupiter Barrier, the 1-star Dragon World card that we play. Jupiter Barrier, you may only cast this card if you're being attacked. Counter, nullify the attack, and you may put a soul from a card on your field into the drop zone. If you do, put the top card of your deck into the gauge, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Well, you might be saying, what in this deck has Soul Guard? Well, Satsuki technically has a huge soul. You're going to be putting 6 cards in the soul. Every now and again, you get a card in the soul that's just dead. Well, that's what this card does. You can cast it, take that soul out, put it in the drop zone, and then you nullify the attack as well as gain 1 gauge, 1 life, and get to draw an additional card. So that's why this card is really, really good. 3 Loud Voice. This card is also really, really good. Cast cost, discard one or more cards from your hand, and then counter. For this turn, all cards on your opponent's field get minus 3,000 power, minus 3,000 defense, and minus 1 crit for every card you discarded. So if you just discard 2 cards, all monsters on your opponent's field that turn are going to get minus 6k attack and defense and minus 2 crit. This card's really, really good. It acts as a shield in of itself. 2 Demon Lord's Roaring Dragon Blast. This card is amazing, and it put in so much work. You pay 2 gauge, and it destroys every monster on your opponent's field. And then, for every card that was destroyed, you draw that many cards. So, really good. 2 copies of World Linking Key, the first, Draco Uno. This card is really, really, really life-saving, and one time... ironically, in round 5 as well, game 1, this is why I won, because he was swinging for game, and I was just like, nope, I'm going to get one more chance, and I ended up beating him. This card, you may only cast this card during your opponent's turn, and if you have 5 or more different worlds in your drop zone. Cast cost, if you have 1 or more cards on the field, put all of them into the drop zone. Counter, discard your hand and draw 6 cards. Then for this turn, you cannot be dealt damage. At the end of your next turn, you lose the game, and you can only activate this once per game. Now, what's really good about this card and Satsuki, and I did confirm this with a judge, when you activate this, if you have Satsuki on board, when it says put all cards into the drop zone, you can remove a soul to keep Satsuki on the board. That is a legal move, so just so you are aware. So, and then I play one copy in the name of the Thunder Empire. This card ended up winning me a game. I almost cut it out, but I'm glad I didn't. Pay 2 life, and then choose 2 Thunder Empire monsters from your drop zone and call them on separate areas by paying their call cost. You may only cast this once per turn. I cast this to summon out Demotion and Operative Spear to just get another big surge of search and draw and life, and then ended up going into bots and equipping Satsuki and then just going off. And then finally, we play 2 copies of Turbulent Thunder Spear X Tempest Ulti Buster. You may only cast this card if your cards have attacked 4 or more times during this turn, if you have a card with bots in its card name, and you have an item equipped. Pay 12 gauge. The gauge cost is reduced by the number of attacks that you've made, and deal 20 damage to your opponent. Now, typically you get 5 attacks off in a turn, but this deck literally gets so much gauge that you can pay the 7 gauge to cast this at times. I casted it only once the whole tournament, and that's what I ended up doing. He was really shocked I did it, but this deck gauges like crazy, so it works. But you're not going to get it off all the time just because this deck overruns people because of the power it can push out. Then for the 10-card sideboard, 2 Shining Dragoneer Jackknife. Jackknife is a Star Dragon World monster, size 2 with 6,000 power and defense and 2 crits. His overthrow is the reason you side him. Put a soul from this card into the drop zone. If your opponent would use a card other than from effects during their turn, nullify the card your opponent used. So it's basically a one-time use of no to your opponent. 2 Overturn Demon Lord Asmodai. 6,000 power, 2 crits, 2,000 defense, and a size 2 monster. His ability is when a 72 Pillar or Thunder Empire enters the field, choose a card on your opponent's field. You may discard a card from your hand. If you do, destroy the chosen card, and that is not once per turn. And then his Overturn ability is pay 1 gauge during the attack phase. For this turn, give a monster on your field power plus 50,000, plus 10,000 defense, plus 3 critical, penetrate, and counterattack. So he is a very, very good card. And then I sided 1 extra copy of Nazaria for just because he's a good card. 3 copies of Vagrant Dragon Seimaru. Seimaru, when he enters the field, you put the top card of your deck into the gauge. And then if you have 2 or more different worlds on your field, you can bounce one of your opponent's monsters to their hand. Really good in Chaos against the Chaos match. A 3rd Demon Lords, Roaring Dragon Blast, and then 1 extra Drago Uno. The reason I cited a 3rd of this is because this card's really good in the mirror match, because if you almost kill your opponent and they cast this on you, and then they go to start their turn, if you cast this right back, they lose instantly because they can't deal you damage, so they can't beat you. So this card's a very good way to check the mirror match as well. So that is my Thunder Empire deck that is in Ruga sleeves, if you were wondering. But anywho, that is the top 8 deck profile for my Buddy Fight deck. Didn't lose a single round, won all 5 of my rounds. Only lost 1 game against Chaos. Drew absolutely horrible in that one, and he just drew everything. But, you know, I'm very, very pleased with the deck. I really enjoy the deck. It's very, very fun. I will say, real quick, because this affects how future Thunder Empire decks will be built or used or whatever. Buddy Fight has come out with a ban list, or reserved list. I don't know what they're calling it, but a reservation list, I think that is. I don't know. But it's a list, and they say for Thunder Empire, if you use a Thunder Empire flag, these 3 cards will be going to 1. 1 to Motion, the one that lets you look at the top 3 when another Thunder Empire enters the field, and add 1 to your hand. Granted, it's only once per turn, but that effect is really good. You can only play 1 copy of Loud Voice, and you can play only 1 copy of Fighter's Oath. Guys, all 3 of these cards are really, really, really overpowered, especially this one. This card should definitely be at 1. And the reason for this is, guys, you can essentially negate what your opponent did to you the previous turn. If there was a time that my opponent dealt me 5 damage, I cast this, and I was able to gain 5 life, because I called Wibbly, I had my set spell from Darkness Dragon World, and I just was able to, and I had Satsuki equipped. That's 1, 2, plus Dragon World, Dungeon, and Legend. That's 5 life and 5 gauge, guys. This card is broke. So I totally get this going to 1. I will admit, to Motion going to 1 in Thunder Empire is a little bit of a bummer, but you still have plenty of options to make Thunder Empire a very viable Tier 1 deck. There were some people I talked to, and they're like, Thunder Empire's gone, it's dead, it's never going to top again. And it's like, that's bullshit, guys. These 3 cards are severely overpowered, and they, I am proud of Buddy Fight instituting a ban list. So, I am going to cover more of that in my Buddy Fight video, but I will be doing another deck profile on this later down the road, I'm sure. So, but anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my future videos. See ya!